ceiling. The reason the light appeared to be pink was because of a pink mist. It was blood. A woman with her back toward me was working fast and hard, hacking up dozens and dozens of writhing bodies, each one's face twisted violently, silently screaming in what was obviously unbearable agony. But the dying were silent, because along with all of their arms and legs being tightly tied together with rope, each of their mouths had been sewn or taped shut somehow. As I entered the room, the woman stopped what she was doing, reached over with her bloodied hand, and switched off a radio. The strange music stopped, and the room was still and warm. Warm from the blood of the dying, from the pile of bodies. She turned around, her face completely covered in blood. All I could see that was human were two eyes staring from the thick, dark red of the blood that soaked her hair and face. She smiled at me through the mess of blood and tangled hair and whispered something that I had to lean in close to hear. She whispered, "Make them stop, or something terrible is going to happen. Something terrible forever." And that's when I woke up. For the first few weeks after returning from Russia, I wasn't feeling particularly well at all. I'd begun losing minutes, hours. One second I'd be making coffee in the morning, the next I'd be switching off the light to go to bed. I had no memory of the life lived in between. I think I remember asking somebody, maybe a doctor of some kind, about these memory lapses, but I can't remember if I received any kind of answer. It was while feeling like this that Cameron Ellis suggested we debrief back in the United States. I agreed to give him a call as soon as I was feeling up to it, but I changed my mind when I returned home. I just felt tired. I just wanted to unplug for a while. I tried to ignore him as long as I could, but eventually, people like Cameron Ellis have a way of tracking you down.
Hello, Nick.
Hey.
I understand you've decided to take some time.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't call, but I figured you'd probably figure it out.
So, how are you feeling?
Better. Much better than the last time I saw you.
It's a common side effect of spending time near that type of thing.
Right.
If I'm not mistaken, you experienced something similar during your work in and around Pacifica Station.
I did, yes. What's going on with Pacifica Station, with the area inside the wall?
I'm afraid I'm unable to provide much in the way of information about Pacifica Station.
Top secret, I suppose.
It's not that. Or at least, it's not only that.
What is it then?
Well, as you're aware, I've been spending some time in Russia lately.
And Japan. Ellis?
Yes, Nick, in Japan as well.
Are there other locations?
We're looking into unconfirmed reports elsewhere.
Elsewhere where? So, what does it mean, this expanding or expansion of the breach?
We're not sure, although we do have some theories.
What theories?
Well, the most popular assumption is that there are some of my team who believe that something is waking up.
Okay, you're starting to sound like Paul.
I hope that's not true, Nick. Paul and his order, they're unstable.
Yeah, well, I'm starting to feel like everybody might be a bit unstable, including myself.
This thing that's happening can be difficult to understand.
You make it sound like it's happened before. Has this happened before? Ellis?
We have recently uncovered some evidence that this multiple breach scenario may have occurred in the past.
When?
In the early 20th century.
What happened?
The expansion appeared to be controlled, stopped, perhaps even reversed.
How?
That's what we're trying to find out.
Cameron Ellis wasn't ready to expand on any of that investigation, so I'm going to switch gears. Back to that forest in Russia. Back to Tunguska. So, what happened in Russia? How did you know to find me there?
We had some friends keeping an eye on you once you arrived.
Some friends.
So to speak, yes?
What happened to the man Veronica called the father?
He's doing fine.
Where?
In a comfortable location.
You have him in custody?
We have him in a comfortable location.
I need to speak with him.
I'm afraid that's not possible at the moment.
Why not?
We're still in the preliminary stage of our interview process.
You're not torturing him, are you?
No, Nick. That's not what we do.
You're sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
Where's Paul?
We have no idea.
And Veronica?
As far as we can tell, Veronica was in the United States while you were in Russia, Portland, Oregon.
That's impossible.
See for yourself.
At this point, Cameron Ellis sent me some documentation and video footage. It was pretty clear. Veronica had been in Portland at the time I was in Russia. So, what was happening? Did I imagine some or all of what happened? Or did Veronica have some kind of twin or doppelganger in Russia? Last season, we learned that Karn suggested Ellis find people who respond to the breach in order to access whatever secrets lay at the heart of what was happening. It seems pretty clear that this is why Ellis is so interested in Veronica and myself, and why I'd been recruited to work in and around Pacifica Station. Pacifica Station is a long way from where I'm currently located, and yet, if I close my eyes, I'm right there, in those halls. I can smell the familiar metal and plastic, hear the whir of the machines that control the atmosphere, and feel the pressure from the woods beyond, the presence of the voice in the darkness, the voice that I first encountered all those years ago, as a child, imprisoned in a strange place. And what about my hypnosis sessions? Taskers, dowsers, great halls, canals, and golden fish. What did all of that stuff mean? Was it Tanis trying to communicate? And if so, what was it trying to say? If something apocalyptic is happening, which seems ridiculous to say out loud, and yet, well, if something bad is happening, don't I owe it to everyone and everything to do anything I can to help? To listen to this thing, whatever it is? And yet, I can't help but feel like Cameron Ellis, Paul, Veronica, and now the father. I don't know. At times they all feel trustworthy, and yet I wonder about their unique agendas. What do they want from it? They all want something. But what? And what happened to my sleep therapist? Is she simply on vacation, or is it something more sinister? All of these things have led to some serious contemplation, but it hasn't all been serious thinking. There were some moments of relaxation. The cabin was beautiful, peaceful. There was an outdoor shower, a large bathtub, and miles of remote wilderness all around. Birds would come and go, picking at seeds and bread from a makeshift feeder I fashioned out of an old motorcycle tire, and a family of wild rabbits hung around for a couple of days at some point, just long enough for me to assign them Watership Down inspired names before they continued their journey toward wherever they were headed. It was nice to spend time there, at least, at first.
Call this hiking?
Yeah, don't you?
This is walking. Hiking involves equipment.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean. Camel packs, clips, spikes, ropes. Hiking.
So this is just walking.
Yeah.
Okay, well this is listed as an intermediate trail in the off-the-grid guide to hiking.
Oh, well then, we should definitely pace ourselves. Did you bring a sat phone, maybe some nuts? You know, we should probably just take a break.
Okay.
You want a beer?
You brought beer.
Yeah, what do you think I had in this pack?
I don't know, hiking supplies?
Now, why would I bring hiking supplies on a walk?
Fair point, I suppose.
Here.
Thanks.
Cheers. To walking.
To walking.
So how long are you gonna stay out here?
I'm not sure.
How was Russia?
It was okay.
It's fucking cold.
Well, it wasn't winter or anything.
It's always cold over there.
Yeah, well, it certainly wasn't balmy.
Did you find out what they wanted? The father, Veronica?
Not really.
Yeah, they're into a lot of strange shit up there in Siberia.
So you've been there?
I've been near there.
How was it?
Didn't see much action, just ate a whole lot of fear factor food, you know. So, what's next?
What do you mean?
I mean, you can't stay up here forever. So, any plans to get back into it or what?
I don't know. But I did know, of course. I was going to get back into it. I'd never left it. Or, perhaps more accurately, it had never left me. It was right around this time that MK called with some new information.
Now a good time?
Sure, what's up?
You're not, like, curing meat or skinning a squirrel for dinner or anything?
Ha.
Any idea when you might be coming back to civilization?
I don't know.
I do.
Really? When?
As soon as I share this shit with you.
What shit?
Two things.
Okay.
First, the book you love, The Roadside Picnic.
What about it?
Well, in there they explain the weird zones by mapping them out based on some sort of comet or asteroid breaking up or whatever.
Right, there's an equation that results in explaining or potentially explaining the locations of the various zones based on the way something entering Earth's atmosphere might break up.
Right, exactly.
So,
what if the Roadside Picnic writer dudes...
Strugatsky brothers.
So what if those guys were right?
What do you mean?
What if that part of their story wasn't fiction?
Okay.
What if that's what's happening with these various Tanises?
Well, that's interesting, maybe, I guess. Is that what you think is going to lure me back into civilization?
It's part of it.
Okay, what's the other part?
Listen to this.
Thermal mapping and magnetic heat control extrapolation led us to place these points on the map. That's correct. Well, certainly an object matching the density and compound composition of the asteroid you described moving through certain fields after passing through its atmosphere would end up hitting the points provided, and that's based on the primary location from your preliminary evidentiary letter. That's correct. Yes, in 5 sections, what they've called Kuga, which means something like quadrants in Russian. What does this mean as far as the locations of your energy vortices? Well, it means these 5 points on the planet, again, if the primary location in Washington State is accurate, These other points might be similarly charged. Well, you could compare soil samples or try another human interaction. No, I don't. The suit didn't do anything. The first thing I do is try to find out if this has happened before. Do whatever they did. I wish I could offer something else as well. I'll let you know. Okay, bye.
MK found that recording using a series of keywords in what she called advanced data trap techniques. I've asked her to elaborate, but she told me I wouldn't be able to understand. I think she just likes being mysterious and hackery. Was that recording made by somebody using a small aspect of Russian science fiction to describe a series of mysterious places on Earth? Or was it simply the most obvious and believable explanation for these seemingly, at least initially seemingly, disparate locations? Mir Catnip is still working on tracking down the source of that recording, along with the identity of the man speaking. In the meantime, although she was at least partially right, the material she dug up definitely stirred up my interest in returning to civilization. I still wanted to do the thing I'd come up to this cabin to do. I wanted to relax, to unwind, to forget. The problem was, I'd done so much forgetting recently, my mind was starting to crave the opposite. I was starting to remember. Recently, I'd started waking up in the middle of the night, usually sometime around 3 or 3:30, strange fragments of memories or dreams stuck in my head. Bits of memories from whatever strange dream world I'd begun describing to my sleep therapist. The really weird thing is that everything felt specifically like remembering, not like dreaming. I wasn't ready to give up my seclusion in the woods. I felt like, no matter what, I still needed time to consider next steps. So, I started walking. I began taking extremely long walks in the woods, doing my best to get as far away from the cabin as possible. Whenever I hit a road or a structure of any kind, I'd turn back. Along with the walking, I'd begun digging into Russian history as it related to anything Tanis-like. You'll probably remember, although it was a long time ago, I mentioned Nicholas Flamel on this show. He was a writer from 14th century France. According to certain legends, Flamel allegedly discovered the Philosopher's Stone and achieved immortality. These legends and myths of Flamel often included the book of Abramelin, the Mage. I bring this up because I uncovered mention of the Book of Abramelin the Mage in Russian translation, falling into the hands of a monk in 1903, who not only used it to achieve immortality, but also to start a revolution. The man connected to this Russian version of the Book of Abramelin was Grigory Rasputin. Grigory Rasputin was a mystical faith healer, confidant, and trusted friend to Tsar Nicholas II and his family. Rasputin was very influential in the Russian capital of St. Petersburg during the reign of Tsar Nicholas II, especially after Nicholas took command of the Russian army that was fighting in World War I. Much of Rasputin's personal life is shrouded in darkness, but in most accounts, he's depicted as dark and brooding, and his influence over Tsar Nicholas and his wife Alexandra Fyodorovna was almost certainly significant. Rasputin grew powerful over the years, so powerful in fact that the proletariat began to resent him, to see him as a symbol of imperialism, but it was more than that. There was something else, something the people believed was demonic. They were afraid of Rasputin, and they wanted him gone. But the Tsarina believed in Rasputin's power as a faith healer, and she had good reason to believe. Rasputin often eased the pain and stopped the bleeding of the royal couple's young son, who suffered from hemophilia. Many historians believe Rasputin used a form of advanced hypnosis as part of his faith healing process. I found information supporting this theory, in a Russian university database online. It was a collection of scanned pages, fragments from some kind of history. I've invited Mir Catnip into the studio to read certain relevant parts of that document, which we've had translated from Russian into English.
The black monk lit the 2 candles and placed them exactly 3.5 inches apart on the small table. The child was told to stare into the flames and clear his mind. Then the monk began to read passages from the old book. The child appeared to fall into some kind of trance as the monk repeated the words from the ancient text. The wind picked up, and there was movement in the trees. Something was coming. Then, the monk woke the child, and the 2 of them turned to face the open meadow. But there, where there had been formerly only long grass and distant trees, stood a small structure. It appeared to be a small wooden house or hut, unadorned and old. A small door with a brass knob, the only decor. The black monk smiled, took the hand of the child, and led him toward the small structure. As the 2 figures slowly approached the hut, dark shadows moved in the woods, and the wind in the trees howled, like the screaming voices of the damned.
Grigory Rasputin, Nicholas Flamel, a strange cabin in Russia mirroring a strange cabin in the Pacific Northwest. All of this was very interesting and surprising, but not as surprising as what came next. MK and I were in the studio going over the material for her Rasputin narration sections when she pulled up her research. She had numerous bits of text and images related to Russia, the forest around Tunguska, the Tunguska event, and, of course, Grigory Rasputin.
Have you seen this picture? The Russian Imperial Army with gas masks?
That's horrifying.
Right?
Could you email me this stuff?
Really?
You already did.
Do you ever check your email?
I checked it this morning.
Wow.
What?
So you check it like what, once a day?
I check it all the time. It's just that things have been fuzzy.
Right.
You'll notice I indicated that MK and I were in the Public Radio Alliance studio, not in a small cabin in the woods. Well, that's because of something I found in MK's research, something that pulled me out of that remote cabin in the woods and right back into the search for Tanis. That something was a photograph. Included in MK's research were some rare historical photographs, which included photos of the woods around Tunguska, Tsar Nicholas II and his family, and, of course, Grigory Rasputin. There was one particular photograph of Rasputin, taken while he was lacking his extremely long signature beard. I realized at that moment that I'd never really paid much attention to any picture of Rasputin. For if I had, I may have noticed it earlier. Staring at that photo, I realized that I'd seen this man